What are you thinking about? You gotta be alert. How many thought I retired? Hello, I'm Mike Moore, and welcome to the How to Win podcast. These podcasts are based off 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. It says, "Now thanks be unto God, who always causes us to triumph in Christ Jesus." I am happy to have you with me today. I'm so glad. Please, if this podcast blesses you, I want you to push that share tab, and I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate it so very much. Now, this is Just a Thought, the Just a Thought edition of How to Win. Now, this edition will be coming to a close. Now, we won't be airing How to Win during the month of December because we're going to be taking a break and then preparing for the beginning of the year, to begin How to Win in the beginning of the year. So we'll be away for the month of December. Now, Just a Thought will be transitioning to Instagram. We're going to still give my thoughts on Instagram and YouTube, so you can find me there. But stay with me on Thursdays because we're going to be bringing in Answers That Work broadcast, and it's going to be at Thursdays at noon the first of the year. So it's going to be just wonderful, and we're just going to do something different, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be wonderful. But I trust you've been blessed by my Just a Thought edition. I have all kinds of editions, leadership editions, all kinds of things going, and we got great things coming down the road. But let's look at our last thought for this year. Let me give you my last thought on, like I said, we're going to transition this to Instagram and YouTube. Even the wise make mistakes, but wisdom is not repeating them. Even the wise make mistakes, but wisdom is not repeating the mistakes that we make. Now, mistakes are really a part of the human experience. Everyone makes mistakes. Now, when I first went in ministry, mistakes used to just kind of devastate me because I never want to make a mistake. Nobody does, really. But I really didn't understand that mistakes are just a part of life. It is a part of our growth. It is a part of the process of becoming all that God wants us to be and doing all that God wants us to do. And even babies, they make mistakes learning to walk. They'll walk a little, fall, stumble, and fall. Then they get back up and they stumble a little bit, fall down. Then they may take a step or two. I remember when my son, Michael K., who's now my pastor, first walked. We was over my godmother's house, and he had his hand on the little stove, space heater. And he's standing up there. He had never walked before. And all of a sudden, he took his hands off the space heater and just started walking across the floor. And everybody was just cheering and clapping. And I'm not sure he made it all the way across the floor, but we were just happy that he took the steps. And life can be like that. Life is sometimes involve mistakes in our growth experiences and in our destiny journey. But it's really important how you view the mistake. You can see a mistake as a destination. You could see it as failure, or you can see your mistakes as an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to learn. I had to get this revelation that mistakes doesn't mean I failed, doesn't mean failure. It's not a destination, but I've embraced the belief that my mistakes is an opportunity for me to learn and grow. And as we grow, we study more and we gain more experience and understanding. So let's look at, why do people make mistakes? Why do we make mistakes? We make mistakes because of ignorance. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, God says. We make mistakes because there are some things we don't know. We make mistakes because of immaturity. You know, I'm an Alabama fan, and our team this year has been struggling under our new coach. But we're not struggling, in my opinion, just because we don't have a good coach. I believe we have a good coach. I really do. But we have a lot of new players, and we got a lot of freshman players who were playing in high school just a few months ago. They were in high school, and now they're on a major scene on a historic team, facing good opposition, and they're making mistakes. And many of those mistakes are related to immaturity. We make mistakes because of a lack of understanding. We make mistakes because of a lack of organization. We make mistakes sometimes because we don't communicate the way we should, or we miscommunicate things. You know, I've been married for 46 years, and I've made some mistakes as a husband. My wife has made mistakes as a wife. What we want, though, is not to keep making them, because sometimes we make mistakes because we don't learn from the mistakes that we made in the past. And sometimes we don't learn from others' mistakes. One of the things I wanted in my ministry career as a pastor for over 42 years, I didn't want scandal. I didn't want scandal in my life, and thank God, God was able to enable me to pastor my church without scandal. But one thing I did, I learned to try to learn from other folk mistakes, because sometimes we make mistakes because we don't learn from other people's mistakes. But as I matured as a Christian, as I matured as a minister, as I matured as a leader, I've come to appreciate the value of learning from my mistakes. I hope I said that right. I learned to appreciate the value that comes with learning from my mistakes. In other words, from my mistakes, I've learned and I've grown from some of those mistakes. I am a better decision maker than I was as a young minister, because I've learned for some of my mistakes. It's been growth for me. Some of my mistakes have been growth for me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. It's important to evaluate our mistakes. My mistakes now in this season of my life after pastoring. Now I'm in Mike Moore Ministries. I'm called to develop leaders, support leaders, help pastors. My mistakes help me to be more understanding. My mistakes help me to be more empathetic. I understand sometimes the pastor and challenges that he or she may be dealing with. My mistakes help me to be more empathetic. I'm more confident in the fact that I can help leaders now because of the mistakes I made. And I can tell them, listen, don't make that. I did that. Don't do this, do that. And so mistakes can be a benefit if we learn from them. I wanna share the rest of the way something that I think is very important, and that is how, and this is coming from a person who over 42 years made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. How do I bounce back from making a mistake? How do I bounce back or how do I respond properly after I make a mistake? I'll give you some tips. Number one, accept ownership. When you make a mistake, accept the ownership of the mistake. Don't blame other people. Don't throw other people under the bus. Don't make excuses. Just own it. Acknowledge ownership of your mistakes. That's going to be very critical to bounce back from mistakes. Another thing I think is very important is to apologize and ask forgiveness from those that were affected by your mistakes. Now, that may or may not be possible. It may not be possible because maybe it was a mistake in one relationship, but the person has moved on. You have no contact with the person. Or maybe there was a mistake and now the person is no longer alive. The person died. And so that may not be possible. But if it's possible that you made a mistake that impacted others, if it's possible, ask their forgiveness. And then be respectful. Don't be flippant. Be respectful. If you have that opportunity to ask for forgiveness, listen to them. Listen to them with respect. Listen to them with concern. Now, I think it's important also, if you make a mistake, is to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is important. Not asking just others to forgive you. You should do that if you can do it. But forgiving yourself. You don't have a right to hold unforgiveness toward yourself. Another thing I think would be important would be to assess whatever the consequences were of your mistakes. Is there something that you can fix? Is there a remedy? Is there something that you can lessen the damage? Is there something you can amend? If possible, you do that. For example, sometimes that's not possible. Let's say your dad, your father, but you were not in your kid's life. I was in a scenario where my birth dad did not raise me. He was a good man, but he did not raise me. And so all my life, there was another man in my life who literally raised me and I idolized, who I think was the greatest man who ever walked the face of the earth next to Jesus. But he was not my birth dad, but he was the one that I knew all my life. I didn't know personally in an intimate way. I knew who my birth dad was. I had some interaction, but I did not have a father-son interaction with my birth dad. Well, as an adult, my dad, I'm quite sure he knew all along that he made some mistakes in not being in my life. And he was so repentant of it, but he never could forgive himself. Whenever we were near each other, he would always bring up how he did not raise me. And I would say, Dad, listen, it's over. I'm not struggling with it. I've forgiven you for that. That's over. But I couldn't get him over the hump. Two things was working in that scenario. Number one, it was too late to remedy that. In other words, he couldn't start back over at I'm a teenager, I'm a child. He couldn't get it back. You know what I mean? He couldn't bring those years back. So there was really no remedy. There was no remedy. Now, what I wanted him to see is that he could do something about the now, and you can do something about the now. If he wasn't in your child's life, you can't undo that. You can ask for forgiveness, you can forgive yourself, but you can't remedy that. You can't fix that. That's why I say you look, assess the consequences. If there's something you can fix, remedy, mitigate the damages, you do it, okay? You do it. But sometimes that's not possible. But you can decide to be better now. Do better now. So I think it's important also for you, if you made a mistake, how do I bounce back? You got to learn from it. You've got to learn. You got to think about the mistake that you made. Why did you make it? What was going on? What was the scenario? What caused you to make that mistake? Okay? Then you learn from that. Learning simply means I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do it that way again. And you make a decision to be a better person. You make a decision to learn from it, to avoid it, establish systems so you won't do that again. And you decide, I made that mistake. Ask you to forgive me. I'm going to ask God to forgive me. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to be a better person as a result of it. And I, as a pastor, I made some mistakes. So a lot of it was a lack of knowledge. A lot of it was immature. A lot of it was that I didn't know, in some cases, what I was doing. But I can learn from it. And I decided I wanted to be a better pastor. So some of the decisions that I made as a young pastor, I would never make at this stage in my life. So learn from it. And then this is going to be, you cannot obsess over it. You cannot, no. At some point, if you walk through some of the steps that I've already talked about, at some point, you're going to have to move on. Because regret and self-incrimination and guilt and all that is counterproductive. At some point, you're going to have to move on. And then finally, listen at this. You've got to believe that God is bigger than your mistakes. You got to believe that God is bigger than your mistakes. And you also have to believe that God's ultimate purpose for your life has not changed. Because even though you made the mistake, God's ultimate purpose has not changed. Why? Because that purpose, God's purpose for your life, was established in eternity past, before the earth was created, before you were born, before you made the mistake. God had already established a plan for your life. So your mistake did not alter the plan, because God looked down through history. He can see the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. God saw you making the mistake in time, but in eternity, he decided, this is my plan for my son. This is my plan for my daughter. So even before you made the mistake, God had already established your purpose and plan. So your mistake didn't invalidate the purpose and the plan, because it was created before you made the mistake, with God knowing that you were going to make the mistake. Does that make sense to you? Now listen, I've got to close, but I want to personally thank you for allowing me to share these thoughts with you. You can go on YouTube, Mike Moore Ministries, and you can pull up some of these thoughts that I've shared in the past. Remember, the month of December, How to Win will not be airing. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to prepare for the new year. And in the new year, we will shift these thoughts to Instagram and YouTube. And in its place on Thursday at different time, not Thursday night, but Thursday noon, you will be able to view and enjoy Answers That Work broadcast with Mike Moore. Listen, I love you so very much. Push that thumb up, share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate it, and I love you, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. What are you thinking about? You gotta be alert. How many thought I retired?
Are you ready to break free from the chains of anxiety, stress, and depression? Mike Moore, author and founding pastor of Faith Chapel and host of the How to Win podcast, is here with his new book, Help, My Mind is Under Attack. Learn how to overcome attacks on your mind and live an emotionally healthy life. Grab your copy now. Available as ebook on Amazon and paperback on MikeMoore.com. Embark on your journey to complete mental health and emotional peace.